Good habits, bad habits. We're always trying to get better, do things more successfully, and those dang habits can trip us up. Well, I have got a very special guest today, Coach Tony Curl, who is going to talk to us about how to break those bad habits and replace them with good ones. And we are going to meet him right after this. The strongest prison bars are in your head. Leaders and teams, it's time for a jailbreak. Hello, Coach Curl. Tony, welcome to Trish TV, the Shift and Lift Mindset Show.
Thanks, Trish. It's awesome being here. What a promo. I'd seen that once or twice, but it still never fails to make an impact, doesn't it? And great to be here. Beautiful day here in Brisbane and a little bit warm. So if I start to sweat, it's through the grilling of your questions.
That's right. I'm going to grill you till you fry. Well, this is the thing. See, it's a bit of a cheat for me because you've got programs that help people. I've got programs that help people, but I get to ask you questions that people want to know. But the good thing about it is if it does help people, we give them some strategies. And then if they want more, they can get in touch with you and pursue that with you. Now, if you're watching, please like, subscribe. I constantly forget to tell people, please do that. Please like and subscribe. It's a lot of fun doing that and enjoy. And by all means, I will be keeping an eye on the comments. So please make a comment. Make one I can broadcast, please. So that we can, because I tell you what, bad habits, man, it doesn't have to be a drug habit. It can be a fingernail biting habit. It can be a stuffing around habit. So
it could be a sitting on the couch habit.
Oh,
it could be so true. There's so many bad habits that people just fall into, don't they, Trish?
They do. Tony, tell us, why is it so hard with all these programs to help us, with all these New Year's resolutions? Why is it so danged hard for us to change?
I think one of the things that happens with many, many people is that we start living a life of what I would call least effort. And this was a concept that was first brought to me by one of the mentors that I have in the United States. He said, and he was sharing his experience. He'd given up drinking and had been for like 12 years. And he gets asked the question often, would he go back to his previous life? And he said, in a heartbeat, he said, because that was me with the least amount of effort. He would cuss, he would swear, and he would be a heavy Southern boy drinker. And that's always stuck with me, this concept of our lives of least amount of effort, because we do see that, Napoleon Hill wrote about it in one of his books about the drifter. Most people just drift through life. It's the least amount of effort. And we know that being the best person actually requires a little bit of effort. So that's how we get succumbed or seduced by these bad habits, whatever they may be. Netflix on the couch, it might be a drinking habit, it might be going to the pub on a Saturday afternoon with the boys. Whatever it is, it's usually something that's holding you back, and it's actually going to take a little bit of work to break.
Wow. I love that phrase, a life of least effort.
Yeah.
And and that's so true, because like it can, social media, you think, I'll just look this up, and you end up somewhere else. Even after this broadcast, when we're doing live to currently, as we speak, we are live to YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook.
Yep.
And after we're done, I spend another hour to an hour and a half doing post-production, and I send it out to different ones. When I send it to Twitter, oh man, I never look at Twitter except for then. And then I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. And I've really got to pull back, because I can spend 45 minutes and then think, oh, that's right, I've got to put this out there.
Yeah. And so many people love dropping their Twitter bombs and then sitting there and waiting for the reaction. So, and once again, it doesn't take a lot of effort to go onto Twitter and write something that's going to be controversial, and knowing that you're going to get some people wanting to challenge that, and then spending an hour or 2 hours replying or getting into online fights. I mean, why do that? That's just energy that you're wasting on fulfilling your best potential. So
That's so true. But I don't enter it. But when I see it's controversial, it's all in my head.
Yeah.
Because I go, oh, I should say this. I could say that. I could say that. But then I think I'm not an idiot, so I'm not gonna get drawn in, because I've realised then that's what they want. They want people to get drawn in. Yeah. If you're watching now, what might be something that you've had a habit of that you've wished that you've been, or you have broken, or what? How do you find? Is it with social media? Is it with Twitter? Just pop it in the chat, and we'll see what people might have, whether it be live now or if you're watching the recording, it'll still come up, and I keep checking as well. So all sorts of things. So it doesn't have to be a drug habit. It can be like nail biting or anything like that. So how long have you been working with people? I know you do a lot of things with success mentoring.
Yeah.
And how long have you been doing that? And then when did you start thinking about, I've really got to create a program specifically for habits?
So a little bit about me, I guess, is that I came out of a 30-year operational leadership career, and in 2013 I'd taken the plunge to become a leadership coach. And because over the last probably 4 years of my operational career, I was doing certifications, I was learning more. The drive to be an operational leader had left me, but the pride in developing other leaders was a really true satisfaction that I was starting to feel. So in 2013, I kicked into my own business. And in the early part of my journey, I was certified with the John Maxwell team. So being mentored by the world's #1 leadership coach is a really good place to start. But then I met a gentleman called Dr. Steve Maraboli from New York, and I did some certification work with him on a process called psychoneuroactualization. And it really is a bit of a game changer in relation to how coaching can truly work and be beneficial. So when I talk about, say, breaking the shackles of what's holding you back, I really utilize a lot of that coaching and influencing principles that Steve taught me through that particular program. And while it's really difficult for me to sit here and say I've got a strategy, I've got a plan, it's going to work for everyone, it's a unique process that we work through, and it's customized to each individual scenario.
Right.
So it's a coaching and influencing process, as opposed to what some people may be looking for, a brain hack or the magic pill that's going to suddenly revamp and revitalize where they're going. We find that often just doesn't exist. People promise like a brain hack. Yeah,
I want a magic pill.
But we'll often find that doesn't exist. So it's a coaching and an influencing piece that I work through, and really happy to walk through some of the main philosophies in and around that, Trish, if you're keen.
Well, we can do that.
Yeah.
What the question that's going in my head is, so I understand that it might be individualized.
Yep.
But there'd be some commonalities with
Very
it.
much so.
So what would be the most common habits that people work with you to break? And let's say in the success realm.
Yep. I think the most common thing that I work with is people that just feel like they're stuck. They're not moving forward. Then, they're not where they thought they would be. And sometimes that's a question in itself. Where did they think they wanted to be? Or did they actually understand what that looked like? But often it's just about that process of being stuck. And so what the first stage for me is to understand what I call their agreement with reality. So what is the story that they're telling themselves?
Mm.
And by understanding that agreement with reality, you can
what
really
might be an example? What might be an example of someone's story? I know they'll all be different, but what would be a fairly typical example?
something like they're not good enough, that that they're playing, they're seeing themselves as a victim to a world that doesn't appreciate them. It might be that they're one of the boys, or they feel the need to be one of the boys, for example. So there's a range of stories that we tell ourselves, and ultimately, what the agreement of with reality starts to make me aware of is their perception of themselves, the perception of other people, the perception of the environment in which they're operating, or the environment that they're perceiving. We find out their attitude and their perspective around goal setting, and we also look at, we also become really clear around their own perspective of the obstacles that they're facing. So it really does become part of, that's the starting point for us. So
Right.
a really good way to think about that is, often you see great success coming from people because they got really focused on that success and no one told them that it couldn't be done. Often when someone says, and think about this in the people that we have within our lives, our mothers, our fathers, our children, our brothers, our sisters. Often we're told we can't do things. Often we're told we can't do things. That's impossible. Why would you be wanting to do that? And ultimately, that then starts to frame what we know as the
Mm.
agreement with reality. People start saying, well, I can't do that because mum told me I can't do that. And
Yep.
so what
Yep.
we often see with successful entrepreneurs is no one's told them that it can't be done. So they just have their agreement with reality that, well, why can't it be done? I'm going to do it because no one's told them otherwise.
So
So
there's
it
a bit
really,
to do with going back in time to find out where that came from.
yeah,
Yeah.
a little bit. Like the way I phrase it is that often people have dug themselves a hole, right? So they're in a hole, they feel like they're stuck, and they feel like everything's getting away from them. Now, some coaches will say, I've got the way forward. They're going to stand around that hole and they're going to offer them encouragement and support to get out of the hole. And there's nothing wrong with that. And for some people, that's what they need. The style that I use, I'm jumping in that hole with them because I want to understand where they are now. Now, it's less about, in many ways, why they believe they are where they are. It's about understanding where they are now and then saying, okay, but what is it that we want to achieve in the future? And so it's really future focused. I'm going to get an understanding of why they think like that. I'm not going to, one of the things that we know is that I can't argue against someone's agreement with reality. If they feel that they've got a sense of themselves or a perception of others, me saying that's not true is
Mm.
not going to achieve what I want to achieve, what we need to achieve. I need to understand where it comes from, yes, but I also need to aspire and inspire them to say, okay, this is where we are now. Where are we going? So we're going to work together to get out of that hole.
So
And
you
I
give it a
guess,
strategy that
mm,
allows them to shift their agreement,
yeah,
so that they can say. And one of the things that I learned to do, which is probably what you're telling people, is that um, I learned not to argue with my brain, but
yeah,
to say, even though I feel like this, even though I feel like I'm not ready, I am taking steps to get there. So I am making progress
yeah,
so that I can give my mind permission to look at the possibility of change so that we're
yeah,
not in arguing with ourselves, and
yeah.
taking steps.
In many ways, it's about influencing the person to see that. So
Yeah.
and really, so we talk about planting seeds
Yep.
and helping them see what could be better about their lives. And the biggest thing around this particular process is that 95% of people will say that they've done it themselves because all of a sudden the seeds germinated and they can suddenly see that there's a different path for them to follow. Because what they've found is that the neural pathways that they're following, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, one of the things that we know is that the best thing a coach could ever do is get a rubber and erase that neural pathway out of someone's brain, and they're going to be better off for it. But the reality is that we can't. That neural pathway is always going to be there. We've got to be able to decode it and replace it, and we replace it
Yes.
with a new one. And that new one's going to be much stronger when people can see the journey themselves. We talk about goal mapping. We'll map their way to success. One of the key parts of the strategy is about setting gauges, what we call gauges in the process. So it really is about, having those conscious, intentional thoughts that are going to keep us on track. And
Okay.
one of the most simplest gauges, Trish, is a very simple one: is what I'm doing now going to help me get to where I'm going, or is it going to harm me?
Okay,
And
hold on,
it's a
pause. Just
whoop.
just 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 pause there, because that's really significant what you just
Yeah.
said there. Really good. Um, I've got to grab you when you do these. This is great. So, is what I'm doing, and we can assume, of course, it's not. I know it's not. Eating all these chocolate bars,
Yeah.
but is this going to help me or harm me?
Yeah.
And actually confronting that rather than just accepting it. That's brilliant. Keep going.
And a really good visual one. So I might be working with someone who goes to the pub on a Friday night with his mates and comes home after closing time. He's probably had one or two too many, and that's not a conducive form of behavior if he's got a young family at home who want to see him as a role model.
Mm.
So then for him to be, or her, asking that question when they're going to the pub with their mates: is this going to help me be the role model that I want to be for my family, or is it going to harm me? Gets that question firmly in the consciousness and firmly there for them to take action. And then it's about, well, it's going to harm me, so I'm going to go home and I'm going to be the role model that I want to be for my family.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's another gauge that's a really good one that gets used is the observer gauge. And this is the gauge that if someone was watching me today, would they be able to tell me what my goals are in life? Really simple.
Oh,
And so, and
boy. Hang on a sec. I got to pause there.
yeah,
If someone is watching you today,
yeah.
could they tell what your goals are?
Yeah. Or it could be goals. It could be, would they be able to tell what's important in your life? Would they be able to
Yes.
tell what you're working towards? And the way that really works is, we talked about it a little bit off air. We can go down this rabbit hole of the social media that's just so quick. And then, so if someone was watching me and at the end of the day, after I've gone through the rabbit hole of what TikTok is, for example, um, and was asked, what do you think's important to Tony? And they're going to say, well, he spends a lot of time on TikTok, so I'm going to presume that that's important to
Mm,
Tony. And
wow.
so
Caught
when you
out.
when you have that as a gauge in your life, you start to realize that. And I'm not saying it's you don't go on TikTok. You just don't spend 3 hours on TikTok. Yesterday, for example, I spent the morning very dedicated on doing a new workbook for a company that I work for, and really trying to map out what that looks like. And then I spent the afternoon putting together my next book. So and at the end of the day, I asked myself, if someone was watching me, what would they think is
Right.
important? Well, they'd know
Right.
that client's important because I spent
Yeah.
time on that, and my book's important. So it
Now,
becomes a gauge for our behavior.
do you plan your week so that you book in ahead good habit activities? Do you think sometimes when our time is too free, like when you have a job where you have this to do and that to do and these customers coming in, you do that,
Yeah,
you get on with it. But when you're self-directed, it's very easy to drift through the day. So would you
yeah.
suggest that allocating time for purposely doing those good habits?
Yeah, I think it's important to be aware of where you're going to be spending your time, and whether that's chunking it down or scheduling it, whatever's going to work for individuals. And sometimes in all honesty, people can, working for themselves as a consultant, look at these days where they actually may not have any physical client contact as a godsend, because I call them my project days. I get really excited about them because it enables me to say, okay, well, in the morning I've been wanting to map out this, that, or another. I might have an idea that I'm thinking about, or I want to consolidate something. So, but I will slot that in. Now, what I actually do with that time may be a little bit flexible, but I am excited for what I can achieve during the course of the day, because the last thing I want is to come 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon when I'm going for a run that I'm thinking, what did I achieve? I want to have something that's getting me closer to my goals each and every day. And that's another gauge. Am I closer? Every day I should be closer to what it is that I want to achieve. And that's another gauge that we work with people.
Yeah, that's excellent. One of the things that has helped me, and I need to use it more often, is the Pomodoro method, that where you have a timer that says, right, set the timer. This is what I'm going to work on for that so many minutes, and then you have that break, and then you come back, and then you have that break. But and I also want to include a disclaimer where, and this is from personal experience, that it's entirely possible that you may have a condition that makes it hard for you to focus. I was recently diagnosed with ADD. Who'd have thought? Because I don't have the H, so I'm not hypo. So it gets missed, particularly in women. They don't present the same as, like, girls don't present the same as boys. And so a few weeks ago, I was able to get some medication to help me with that. And my goodness, suddenly I'm able to focus. And that's what I was really excited about having you on today, because I'm on it, man. I don't want to spend the next 30 years like the last 30 years. Now, I've achieved a lot, but it could have been a whole lot more. So there's hope. So working with someone like yourself can help people, even if they have that, like, if you suspect that might be the case, if you're watching and you suspect that might be, find out. Find out and
get diagnosed.
Because, yes, there's nothing wrong with getting help. That's what we're all about, mindset, and mindset is connected to the brain. If you need some medical help, please get it.
Very much so. And
really, really important.
And just to back that up, I was working with a leader there who was a national sales manager, and we were talking about that the method that you just talked about, chunking down their times and scheduling their times. And I said, start with 20 minutes and see how you go. And on my next call, he said, Tony, I lasted for 11. I said, well, let's start at 11, right? And then try and increase it each and every day. Now, the reality was that he started to get much better. And so within his own disciplines and, his own desire to be more productive and effective, he was able to work through that and eventually built up the time. But fundamentally, if 10 or 11 minutes is the max of your focus, maybe that is an opportunity to go seek some medical help, and just to make sure that everything is working okay.
Well, that's right. I mean, it's made all the difference to me.
Yeah, which is fantastic.
And also, and to my daughter who needed some help with that, which has been great. Another thing that I wanted to catch that you were talking about, and we're talking about replacing bad habits with good. When you were talking about someone going to the pub, something that I've found helpful, not when I go to the pub, I don't do that, but not often, not weekly.
No.
But not just having I won't do this, but having something actually planned. And it doesn't have to be plans in stone that if they're not quite right, it's like, oh, it's all messed up now because it wasn't how I wanted it supposed to be. But actually, don't just go home and hang out, but talk to your partner about, let's have a games night. Let's having something you actually do that is fun.
Yeah.
So that you're replacing that negative with the positive, and then your kids will be like, oh, this is so fun. I love hanging out with dad, or mum. And it's precious times. So we're not just talking about giving up, are we? We're talking about creating those new ones and making it like a game.
And it's about understanding what the role model looks like, and so for many, for many fathers from history, is fathers find it much more difficult to bond with their kids. To, they're the breadwinner. They're in many ways quite aloof from some of their kids. So it's really understanding, what does that look like? What role model do I want to be for my kids? Do I want to be the dad that just comes home and sits on the couch and watches the nightly news, or do I want to be someone that's going to challenge them and educate them and mentor them and be that guiding light? And once people understand what that role model looks like, that's where the things like the game nights or taking kids camping or whatever it is, once you decide what that looks like and where you want to focus some of your energy and time, that's when you make the right decisions.
Yep. And I want to speak to men about that, because I'm so glad you brought that up, that you can feel like you're not good enough. You can feel like, oh, I'm supposed to be this mentor. I'm supposed to be this person speaking into my kids' lives. I'm supposed to know what to tell them and do that.
Yeah.
You know what? Start with something that they will enjoy. Start with something fun, a game of Snap with cards. Yeah. Start with something. You don't have to be the professor.
Yeah.
But do something that is going to be a happy moment. Don't stress about the rest. And for goodness sake, stop saying, after all I do for this family, I'm here to provide, and they're so ungrateful, because your misery is being projected onto them. No one wants to be around a misery guts. Yeah. Sorry. I know you suffer with feeling bad, but the self-esteem of dads, and I know this happens, I do speak to women as well, but I'm glad you brought that up, because dads, you matter. And even if you might not live with your children, but when you're with them, and you don't have to be like, oh, I'm the sunshine and happy and ice cream dad.
Yeah.
But really just ask them about their day, and then wait and let them, and they might take a little while for them to give. And sometimes you might need to be walking for them to open up, or doing something, or a jigsaw puzzle, one that's not too hard.
Yeah.
You don't need to win. You don't need to, that these are great habits that help people feel better in order to put the good habits in. Hey, because sometimes we can feel like, I need to do that good habit, but I'm not good enough to do it.
Yeah, and it really is about just finding that connection point. It's like everything that we do, we want to connect with people. We want to connect with our kids. I mean, one of the greatest joys of my life was, my son Tim and I used to go surfing every weekend, and we'd get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. We'd be in the water by 5:15 down at Tugun on the Gold Coast. We'd surf together. We'd grab a pie after that, and we'd drive home. So we'd be home by 11 o'clock back in. And, that was something that we both look forward to. And it's not like we had deep and meaningful, life-changing conversations. Every now and again we would, but we would connect, and it was about a common purpose. And then he got his license. And
and
we
still
have that connection, but
you do. You've built those memories.
Absolutely.
So good, so good. Look, I want to make sure that people know where to find you and how to get to you. So this is your website, coachcurl.com.
Yep.
You can find him there to break the shackles. I'm all about shackles. I'm all about breaking my shackles. I know what it is to be in shackles.
We have a connection in that
place. We do.
Your story, yes.
Yes. And I also want to make sure people know about your podcast, which is Today's Leader podcast.
Yeah.
So you can find that on iTunes or anywhere you get your podcasts. And look, get in touch with Tony. He's so kind, and he's so patient, and these things, they matter, and they will build your life. And go and have a look at those links and explore them. Tony, I'm so thrilled that you were our guest today. I just want to thank you for coming on, and I look forward to hearing your successes and gleaning your wisdom.
So. Absolutely. Trish, it's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you so much for inviting me. And I look forward to our continuing connection, because I think that there's a lot of similarities between what you do and what I do, and maybe one day there's a collaboration piece
There you
in the
go.
pipeline. So I love what you're doing with Trish TV. I love the fact that you're getting out there and building that brand. So well done. You're certainly not sitting on that fence. You know your purpose, you know your passion. So well done. Congratulations.
Oh, thanks so much. All right, everybody, you can find Tony, you can find me, and tune in for each week to Trish TV, the Shift and Lift Mindset Show. Remember to like and subscribe, and let us know your thoughts. All right, everybody, bless your heaps, and we'll see you next time.
See you.